Hello everybody. If I sound different, if things look a little different, it's because I've updated this video, changing very slightly how we go about setting up the joints and their orientations throughout the body. And I'm going to start with the spine here and just talk about how we go about this process. So you should have your head rig somewhat done. I know we need kind of have to go back and finish things up, especially with skinning and all that stuff, but as far as the bare bones of getting the controls and the joints in, that's kind of where I expect you to be moving into this step. It's not that we're going to connect these two together right now, but it's just good to have that stuff done for now. And what I want to do is I'm going to go up here to my rigging toolkit and go to my joints. And we're going to create the spine. And in previously how I had done this, it was too many joints that we created together, and I've simplified it down, so we're just going to have just a few joints here, and I'm going to do this in the side view, because if I do it in my perspective view or the other views, it might go off of that x-axis, but you see x down the center is our perfect 0. Cool. So I'm going to start here in the side view. I'm also in the front view just going to enable x-ray joints, that way I can see where those joints are getting placed. Okay, so I'm going to start with the hips. All right, that seems about all right. And see how, if I see it in the side and front view, I can see both. Fantastic. So we're going to do one at the hips. And I'm going to try to follow the curve of my spine a little bit. We're going to do one at the abs, kind of the midsection of the abs. We're going to do one at the lower chest, like the lower sternum, kind of right there where that hard, that hard part of your chest, where you just kind of like take your knuckles and beat it against your chest until you hit your belly, right? You know that hard part? Kind of in that section there. That's what I'm looking for, the lower part of that. Then we're going to do an upper sternum. So kind of, and really, rather than kind of upper sternum, I really like to think about this as shoulders, because this is where we'll get a lot of shoulder rotation when we rotate those together. That upper part of our torso, when we twist that spine, that's kind of what this joint is going to do. And then finally, we do want to have a connect joint. And these don't have to perfectly overlap, because we will delete one later and connect these two together. But I like to have them now for orientation purposes. So just going to click it there. You saw it here, I'll just undo. And I click and drag, and then there we go. It is placed vaguely over where that other joint also is. And hit enter, and that is my spine joint. There we go. Cool. Now I very well could have positioned this back a bit so that it is a little bit more to the rear. So now let's actually start thinking about our joint orientation. Before we do, let's name some stuff. So all of these currently joint 1, joint 2, joint 3. So hip, and we can either do this like underscore J and T, or like what I did before with my tongue. You can see there, just type out joint. I'm gonna change mine just because I prefer just typing out J and T these days. So that's hip. These are abs, J and T. Then this is we'll say sternum, J and T, shoulders, J and T, and neck, J and T. Cool. So, that being said, I do kind of want to push this hip back a bit, or pull the abs forward. So if I did want to move any of this stuff, first off, I'm going to make sure my manipulator is in world mode by pressing and holding W, left clicking and holding, and switching either to object, world, or component mode. Whoops. Object, world, or component. And the reason I'm switching to world is, you can see when we're an object, it follows the orientation of the axis, but in world, we follow the orientation of the world. And if I was to move this forward, it moves all of my joints forward, but I can hold or hit toggle D on the keyboard, and then I can push those abs forward just a bit to be a little bit more centered, then hit D again. And let's do that again for the next, the lower sternum here. Just bringing that a little bit forward, and maybe even also for the shoulders, just to kind of follow that kind of natural curve in my character, as well as like a curve of what an actual spine would be. It doesn't have to be positioned towards the back like our spine is. I've done that before, and I've gotten mixed results. So I'm going to keep it kind of centered here. Fantastic. We've got those named. Let's now check out their orientation. So I need to select all of them. So selecting each one individually, or selecting the first one, holding shift, selecting the last one. I'm going to go up to display, transform display. I'm going to click this tab up here at the top, which will allow me to pull that window off, and I can easily, quickly toggle these. And let's take a look at their orientations. X is pointing up, Y is pointing forward, Z is pointing to the left and right, and so forth. And everything looks good except for that last joint, and we can go in and fix that up individually. Just to remind myself, I'm going to go to my spine and enable the local rotation axes and check it out. So it looks like X is pointing down the line, Z is pointing left and right, and Y is pointing forward and backwards. But you can see the positive direction, right? Positively, this one for the spine is pointing backwards. And I bet the same thing for the next one, yeah? Yeah. So when we see the direction on these local rotation axes, and we see that Y is going in a particular direction, or Z or X, what it's telling us is that's the positive direction and the opposite's the negative. So if we kept our spine as is, we have a flip here essentially, where rotating forward in that direction would be positive, and then we get to our neck and rotating forward in that direction would be negative with Y. So what we really want to do is make sure these are lined up and the same. So we're going to actually orient all of these joints. So these, we're going to use that joint orientation tool. So we're going to go up here to our rigging toolkit, skeleton orient joint option box. And we're going to take a look at some of these settings here. So we have primary X, secondary Y, secondary axis world orientation being Y as well, positive. We can come back and play with that if this doesn't give us the right results, but it should. Just real quick, I'm going to reset. Orient children of the selected objects was turned off for me because I was playing around with other things, but let's give this a shot. Alright, so as soon as I click that, it looks like we get one of our desired results, right, being the very bottom, where X is pointing up, Y is pointing back, but everything else is still flipped. So let's try this one at a time. And I'm going to uncheck orient joints, and then let's change this plus sign to a negative, which flips that secondary axis. So now let's do that for the remaining ones. So this was the setting that I needed, was that secondary world axis just needed to be flipped from a positive to a negative. There we go. So we fixed all of them with the exception of the neck joint, right? Sorry, got tongue-tied. The neck joint, where Y is pointing back, X is pointing, yeah. So it's not right. X is pointing left and Z is pointing up and down, I think. I don't know. Let me turn off for that spine connect, the local rotation axis. For this neck joint, I'm actually not even going to worry about it. We're either going to delete this one or we're going to delete the spine connect on the spine. We'll probably actually delete the spine connect, so let's go ahead and fix this one. It's going to be difficult to fix with the orient joint tool, so sometimes it's nice to just be manual about this. So I'm going to disable polygons and go in here into component mode with this button up here at the top, or hit FA on the keyboard, and then I'm going to click this question mark. There we go. Now that allows me to select this orientation axis, and I can rotate it however I would like. So I need Y facing backwards. So we're going to rotate Y back. And I'm going to get it so Z is lined up and it's, you know, going down the chain here, because that will make it easy when I go to rotate and make the X go up down the chain. And I can be very specific, holding J and rotating in increments. There we go. So X is pointing down the chain, Z is pointing left and right, and Y is pointing backwards. Cool. So now those are oriented together. Let me get out of component mode. Also, while I'm here and I have this all lined up properly, I can disable the local rotation axis with the transform display. And I can close out these views. I'll actually leave the transform display open for now because we'll need it here in just a second. But that's the spine joints. Next up are the arm and leg joints.